Juleka here. If you've listened to the show long enough, you've seen me and my big bouncy head of curly hair. So I'm so excited to tell you about Maui Moisture, a vegan line of products for curly hair like mine and my new obsession. For a limited time, Latina to Latina listeners get 15% off select products on Amazon. Just visit tiny.cc/Maui Moisture.
Erika Sánchez rose to national prominence with her New York Times best-selling young adult novel, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. Now, in her new memoir, Crying in the Bathroom, Erika is picking up where her last work left off, sharing what happens when a rebellious, brilliant young Latina wants more for her life than anyone else can imagine, actually begins to live. Erika, I am such a fan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I so loved Crying in the Bathroom. I have cried myself in the bathroom too many times to count. And I always feel like when you're writing a memoir, one of the biggest challenges is where to start, because you don't want to start with the obvious, which is like, I was born and I grew up here. And you start with The Year Your Vagina Broke is the title of the chapter. Why the choice to start there?
Yeah, well, as a youngster, I've always really delighted in like scandalizing people. Sometimes I talk to my best friend from growing up and we discuss how like we just really enjoyed making people uncomfortable and it would make us laugh. And so I think that is part of it. Also growing up, I felt an immense sort of shame about my body. I felt like I was dirty. I had to hide my breasts because men would look at me and I would be inviting their stares. I felt so just discombobulated in myself physically. And I felt that part of the story is a continuation from the novel in a sense in which like this young woman, me, is in college trying to find herself, trying to make sense of the world and seek pleasure and romance and love, but being told that you're not worthy of that. You're not allowed to have that. You can only have sex when you're married. Otherwise, you're a whore. And it's just like, why? I understand that it comes from the Catholic Church and patriarchy and what have you. But I just feel like there's a different way to be now. I feel like my generation and subsequent generations are going to be like, no, thank you. We don't subscribe to these notions because those notions are incredibly harmful to us.
I am like you raising a daughter. I have 2 daughters, so I truly hope that is the case. For those who did not read Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, let's just do a little catching up. You write in this book, growing up, I always felt like a pariah, a misfit, and a disappointment in my traditional Mexican family. Can you give us an example of how that was so?
Yeah, I have many examples, but one was when I was about 16, I shaved off most of my hair. It was after like a really unfortunate haircut. And I was like, I'm tired of these beauty standards. I don't want to subscribe to this. I was like going through this very sort of aesthetic phase. And I was really interested in Buddhism. And I wore a lot of thrift store clothing because I was like, I don't care about material things. You know, I thought I was like more spiritual than everybody else. And so anyway, the shaving of the head just came naturally as a result of that kind of thinking. And I was fine with it. I didn't really care about how I looked so much, but people were very, very put off by it, upset by it. My father, my mother, they were just so upset. They were like, how dare you? Why did you do that? You're bringing shame upon your family. You know, like, I mean, it was inconsequential to me. And so that was one way in which I rejected the gender norms that were given. I didn't agree. I thought they were stupid. You know, like I didn't want to to heat up tortillas for my brother because he was perfectly capable of heating them himself. Like that was not something I was going to do. And that created all this conflict all the time because I was like, nah, I don't think so. That doesn't work.
That's the adolescent version of wanting more for yourself, which is a tension that sort of runs throughout the book. The sort of both wanting more and then the sense of internally from you, from yourself, who are you to want more than this? You write, success in my family meant sitting at a desk. It meant you had air conditioning during the brutal summer months. It meant your boss didn't talk down to you because you didn't speak English. It meant you didn't fear La Migra would deport your ass while you were minding your own business, trying to make a living. And like the hair on my arms stood up when I read that piece of it, because that is the first gen dream, right? Just like get an office job.
Yeah.
Just have a solid living, have 401k. How did your parents feel then when you were like, I think instead I'll be a poet?
They were not pleased. They were confused. They were like, what is that? Like, how do you make a life out of that? And I didn't really know myself, but I had read many books. I had seen many movies, and I was like, this is a thing that I'm going to do because I've seen white people do it. So why not? And I felt like I was meant to do it. Like that was my calling in life. I knew this very young. Ever since I was like 12 years old, I decided I'm going to be a poet. I'm going to be a writer. And I never wavered. My parents felt that it was a very risky path. And I agree it was. But there was nothing else for me to do. Like I didn't know how to function in like a regular job. I tried office jobs because I needed to make money, and I tried to like just suppress myself in order to just survive and make money and like be able to eventually one day have a writing career. But that was very painful for me. I didn't know how to act in those environments. I always felt like a loose cannon. I would always say things that people thought were weird. It's just like I literally couldn't help myself. And so my parents, they never imagined that I would have a life like this. And then finally, when Mexican Daughter came out and my poetry collection came out, they were like, oh, I see. Like it started to make sense to them what it was that I was trying to do.
What I loved about learning about this in your new book is you are this huge public success in that moment. It is the moment when externally everyone thinks she's doing so great. She must be so happy. But in reality, your life is unraveling in those years.
Yeah, it was very surreal to have reached this peak that I always dreamed of. And, I went to the National Book Awards and I was traveling and I was speaking at all these different events. And I felt so excited for my life. And it was like the hard work paid off until a culmination of things happened. And I kind of burned out in some ways. And, I think being so public was really hard for me. When I write these very intimate stories, like people have very strong reactions and they expect a lot from me. And so that was tough to navigate. I wasn't sure how to like draw boundaries. That in conjunction with a really terrible relationship, in conjunction with a change in my medication, being away from my family, my community in Princeton, New Jersey, all of those things. And then on top of that, getting pregnant and then not knowing what to do. Like all of that just crushed me. It was so excruciating. I don't even know how to describe it. I tried my best in the book, but it doesn't really do it justice. It was like being alive was a penance. It was like, why am I here? What am I doing? What's the point? I don't matter. I like literally just wanted to disappear.
Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. We talk a lot on Latina to Latina about ways to take care of our mind. We have talked about journaling, expressing gratitude, breath work. I have shared how important it is for me to try and move every single day, not just for my body, but for my mental wellness, because this brain has got to last me a long time. How we care for our minds affects how we experience our entire lives, so it is important to invest time and care into keeping them healthy. There are plenty of ways to support a healthy brain, like learning a new language or taking power naps. There's also BetterHelp online therapy. I can get so deep into my own head that sometimes talking with a professional is the only way to pull myself out and really assess what's going on. BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, even live chat-only therapy sessions. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Latina. That's betterhelp.com/Latina.
Juleka here. I've mentioned before that Latina to Latina is supported by First Republic Bank. And I'm a happy customer after opening accounts for my young sons to help me teach them about saving and spending. For a couple of years now, I've experienced First Republic's commitment to understanding their clients' needs and providing unparalleled service. My personal banker, Alicia, really embodies the relationship-based approach, which means bankers like Lisa provide tailored financial solutions to individuals and businesses at any stage. Whether you're opening a savings account, buying your first home, or starting a family, First Republic's personal service can help you see just how much banking can mean to you. Visit firstrepublic.com today to learn more. That's firstrepublic.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Hi, everybody. Juleka here. Maui Moisture blends 100% aloe vera with nourishing coconut water and other hydrating ingredients to create formulas for all curl patterns, from fine waves to kinky coils. They have everything you need for wash day and general upkeep. Shampoos and conditioners, treatments, oils, and stylers that leave hair flake-free with no residue. Bestsellers like the Shea Butter Shampoo and Conditioner deeply quench and nourish damaged hair. And my absolute favorite, their new Nourish and Moisture Coconut Milk Curl Foam Mousse adds shine and gives me frizz-free curls. And Maui Moisture products don't hurt my pocket. They're all under $10 and available at your local drugstore, like Walgreens, Walmart, Target, and Amazon. For a limited time, Latina to Latina listeners get 15% off select products on Amazon. Just visit the link created for our show, tiny.cc/Maui Moisture. Buy your new favorite hair products and take advantage of the special offer only open to our listeners.
You write very powerfully about that unexpected pregnancy and about the decision to terminate that pregnancy. What do you want us to know about that decision and about the period that followed?
I think what is most important to understand is that it was a life and death situation. It wasn't something that I took lightly. It was the worst experience of my life. I'm glad I did it. And yet it was just the worst thing that's ever happened. So these two things are simultaneously true. And I think a lot of people struggle with that sort of nuance, especially when it comes to abortion. I was grieving for so long after I had that procedure. And it was such a traumatic experience for many different reasons. I don't feel like we have to justify our abortions to anybody. No one likes it. It's not a light decision. It's something that many of us do because we might die if we don't. And even so, even if it's just I don't want to have a child right now, it doesn't matter. Our bodies should be left alone. We should not have to answer to other people about how we deal with our bodies, what we do to our bodies, because that is dehumanizing.
When you say it was a matter of life or death, I mean, you referenced changing your meds. You'd long been diagnosed as a depressive. You had a psychiatrist who changes that diagnosis to bipolar expression, puts you on different medications as a result. And part of what you're not picking up on is the fact that these meds are not working, that this is not actually a fit. In the period after, I'm trying to remember in terms of you going to the psych ward, you realize you need help. Are you with your mom when you realize you need help?
That was the second time. The first time I was by myself, and I just drove myself to the psych ward because I was like, I can't go on like this. I might die. And, I'm over here like with this really prestigious fellowship and all of these accolades, all these beautiful things happening for me. And I'm like, I don't want to be alive. It was crazy. It was surreal. And, people were checking in on me, not understanding what was happening. Like I wasn't answering emails or texts or anything because I was literally in the hospital without access to any of that. And yeah, I don't think anyone could have suspected that that was going to happen to me, especially me. It was really debilitating. And so I figured like, I need to take control of this situation before I just like dissolve into the ether because that's how it felt. And it was really frightening.
Coming out of the second trip to the psych ward, you really begin to make some major life changes. What were they? And as your sort of approach shifts, as your energy shifts, how do things in your own life begin to shift?
Yeah, so I came back to Chicago because I felt like I needed to be with my family and my friends. And I eventually recuperated over the course of the summer. And that was because I had an outpatient program. And then I also got another round of electroconvulsive therapy, which used to be known as electroshock therapy, but it is very different now. And so that was like the last resort for me because nothing else was working. And I was desperate. I was like, please do this for me because I can't go on. And I got, I think, a total of 12 rounds. And by the time I was finished, I began to really feel like myself again. Like I was eating more. I was able to joke with people. I experienced joy and pleasure again. I was able to read. I was able to write. I just was given myself back to myself, It was an incredible shift. And I'm so grateful for science. Like, oh my God, I never would have thought that this was something that I could ever do. And after that, I returned to Princeton. I finished out my fellowship, which really worried me. I didn't want to quit. I was like, I cannot give this up. This is too important. And so I went back. I did my job. I traveled again. I went to Italy. I went to London. I went to Dublin. I was like, I'm going to really live it up because I almost died. So it was a really amazing renaissance.
You also got married. You have a baby. It really just like everything sort of unfolds from that moment on. The epigraph of crying in the bathroom really sets the tone for the story that you'll tell and the journey you'll take us on, which is from the poem by Emily Dickinson, "The wounded deer leaps highest." How in your own life has that been true?
Yeah, that's a very personal quote because I don't know if that's the case for everybody else, but like, I think having had such deep trauma for many reasons, mostly my bipolar disorder, that's been in a sense a gift to be able to like turn that horrible suffering into something that is beautiful, that is art that people can connect to. So finding the meaning in the hurt is really what I was trying to get at in the epigraph. Where and I love the image of it. I think a deer jumping is so exquisite. Like that to me as a poet, I'm just like, oh, chef's kiss. Like it's just one of my favorite images.
I cried a lot reading Crying in the Bathroom. And I think it's in part because that experience of being an outsider, of not fitting in anywhere, of not belonging anywhere is bizarrely so shared as an experience. And you articulated something that I have never quite been able to put my finger on. And it's sort of you pushing away the idea of imposter syndrome and instead putting it this way. It's not that I believe myself to be fake or unworthy. It's that I question whether a person like me will be allowed to live the way I choose. I've always known that there was something special about me, a part I wanted to share with the world, but my fear was that the world wouldn't see it or wouldn't care. What is your best advice to someone who feels the same way?
Well, there's so much to say. And, like I teach young Latinas all the time. And this has been like such a healing experience for me because I want to give them the wisdom that no one gave me. And so I feel like whenever I teach, I try to make them understand that they may be different, but that makes them special, that is an asset, that being bicultural is like an amazing, beautiful thing that we often don't really recognize as a society. And so I felt as a young woman so alone. I didn't know what it was going to take for me to just have the kind of life that felt right for me. And it seemed to me that society decided that I wasn't worthy of such things, that I, as a brown woman, as a working class woman, or someone who grew up in that environment, like I wasn't worthy of all those things. I mean, I thought I was worthy myself. I was like, I should be able to do that. But I had so much rejection. I faced so much criticism throughout my writing career that it was as if I just didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. In like the literary landscape, the landscape was very different when I was trying to come up. Like everyone was almost everyone was white, and here I am insisting that people pay attention to my work, and it felt really demoralizing at times. But I knew that what I had to say was important. I knew that. And I see it now with like the young women who respond to my work where they're like, I've never seen this before. I'm so encouraged by this. I see things differently. Like that is what makes writing all of this worth it, is that kind of response, because that's what I needed as a young person. And I had, examples here and there, but not enough. And so I had to like do it. I'm like, if I want these books to exist, I need to write them, which is what Toni Morrison said. And I really took that to heart.
Erika Sánchez, we are all so grateful that you stayed with it, that you remained insistent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, as always, for listening. Latina to Latina is executive produced and owned by Juleka Lantigua and me, Alicia Menendez. Paulina Velasco is our producer. Manuela Bedoya is our marketing lead. Kojin Tashiro is our associate sound designer and mixed this episode. We love hearing from you. It makes our day. Email us at hola@latinatolatina.com. Slide into our DMs on Instagram. Tweet us @latinatolatina. Check out our merchandise that is on our website, latinatolatina.com/shop. And remember, please subscribe or follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Good Pods, wherever you are listening right now. Every time you share this podcast, every time you share an episode, every time you leave a review, it helps us to grow as a community.